Welcome, welcome, welcome to the deep dive. It's really great to have you with us today.
Glad to be here.
We're diving into something that feels, well, incredibly urgent and also surprisingly deeply insightful.
Definitely. It's quite the mix.
Yeah, think of it like pulling back the curtain on, the big global crises, climate change, conflict, but seeing it all through this really unique lens. Ancient wisdom, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm. Mystics, philosophers weighing in on today's mess.
Exactly. And if you've been feeling like, I don't know, like every single alarm bell is just ringing all at once in the world.
You're definitely not alone in that feeling.
Right. So our mission today is to sort of unpack this really complex, sometimes tragic interplay between, well, environmental collapse, this huge rise in military spending, and maybe even the human mind itself, how we let this happen.
The psychology behind it all.
Yeah. We've pulled together, well, a pretty fascinating blend of things. Hard facts, geopolitical flashpoints, the really critical stuff in these timeless spiritual perspectives. The goal is to help you, the listener, become, truly well-informed about this moment. It feels pivotal, doesn't it?
Absolutely pivotal.
Okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here, I think, is just how starkly that teetering on the edge feeling. It's right there in the data. Raw numbers.
You mean the paradox?
Exactly. This almost absurd paradox. Our planet is warming up incredibly fast, record-breaking pace.
Yeah.
And at the exact same time, global military spending is just soaring to levels we've never seen.
Okay, hit us with some numbers then. Let's ground this.
Right. So 2024, it wasn't just another hot year. It was the hottest year on record, period.
Hottest ever.
And it actually pushed us briefly past that 1.5 degrees Celsius guardrail.
Mm-hmm.
The one from the Paris Accords everyone talks about.
We actually crossed it, even briefly.
We did. Think about that. And carbon emissions, they're not slowing down. Not really. They're breaking records too. Still, fossil coal alone hit about 37.4 billion tons in 2024. That's a jump of nearly 1% from the year before.
And that's just fossil fuels.
Just fossil fuels. If you add in deforestation, the total 2-year was around 41.6 billion tons.
Wow.
And at this pace, the scientists are warning the remaining carbon budget for even a 50-50 chance of staying under 1.5 degrees.
Yeah.
Will burn through in about 6 years.
6 years?
6 years, yeah.
That's a blink of an eye, geologically speaking. But for humanity, that's a terrifyingly short deadline. So, okay, that's the environmental picture. Grim. What about the military side? Are we seeing a different trend there, maybe pulling back?
No. It's equally staggering and equally upward. Global military spending, it's soared. Hit an estimated $2.7 trillion in 2024.
Trillion, with a T.
With a T. And that's a 9.4% increase from the year before.
Yeah.
That is the steepest single-year jump we've seen since, well, at least the 1980s.
Wow. So war is becoming a growth industry.
It almost looks that way, doesn't it? It's bizarre. Rich nations, poor nations, they're all committing bigger slices of their GDP to arms. Military spending is now about 2.5% of global GDP.
Okay.
And roughly 7.1% of all government budgets. Both of those figures. Historic highs.
So leaders are juggling guns and pollution.
Exactly. It's this tragic comic mashup, like some kind of dangerous, absurd stunt show on the world stage.
It makes you think of those old stories, doesn't it? Like the Bhagavad Gita.
It really does.
Yeah.
Our sources draw that analogy directly. Humanity is like Arjuna, on the battlefield.
Except
our arrows are drones.
Our arrows are drones, our ancient bows are intercontinental ballistic missiles. And Krishna, the guide, conscience, seems to be in hiding.
So that's what this deep dive is about, surveying these storms.
Precisely. The conflict in Ukraine, the tension between Israel and Iran, alongside the climate catastrophe, the nuclear threat.
And how the big institutions like the UN are coping. Or not coping.
Exactly. How they're struggling. How the alarm bells about arms, about ideology, seem to just go unheeded. And all through this, we'll weave in these spiritual insights.
From Osho, Krishna, Krishnamurti, Ramana Maharshi.
Yeah, to try and illuminate the absurdity, maybe the tragedy of it all. Because, the sources suggest if we don't pause and reflect on this, maybe even with a bit of dark humor.
We could just stumble blindfolded into some kind of reset.
A catastrophic reset.
Okay, let's dive in. The climate first. Earth on fire.
Right.
Those numbers you shared, that feeling of teetering, it really does feel like the planet itself is in rebellion now, doesn't it?
It does. It's not abstract anymore.
No, it's tangible, it's urgent, it's happening right now. 6 of the last 7 years were the hottest ever. And 2024 just smashed the records. It's hard to ignore.
You're absolutely right. The effects aren't theoretical. They're devastatingly real. Forests are like tinder boxes.
Yeah.
Extreme heat waves. That's the new normal. We saw cities like Delhi, Madrid, New York, Beijing, just sweltering. People suffering.
The ice.
The Arctic sea ice, continuing its retreat. Greenland, Antarctica, shedding billions of tons of ice, billions, relentlessly pushing up sea levels, record highs again.
Oceans heating up too.
Holding unprecedented heat. And the cause, the atmospheric hero, just keeps climbing. We're now about 52% above pre-industrial levels.
52%.
And what's worrying regionally, China and India actually hit fresh carbon highs in 2024. Europe's emissions, they dipped slightly, but only slightly.
So the evidence is undeniable. The politicians are still quibbling, arguing over pledges. What's the block? Why aren't these facts forcing action?
It's the critical question, isn't it? Because the atmosphere, well, it doesn't negotiate like a political committee.
Right.
Its communication comes through weather extremes, getting more and more severe.
Like those disasters in 2024.
Exactly. 148 climate disasters were classified as unprecedented in severity. Just last year.
Unprecedented.
We saw those Pacific king tides flooding streets that people thought were safe, wildfires raging in Canada, southern Europe, drought devastating East Africa.
And the cost.
Huge. One NGO report looked at the 10 costliest disasters of 2024, mostly floods and storms, over $229 billion in damages.
Billion with a B.
Yeah, it's surreal. The political response often seems like theater.
You mentioned Osho earlier. What may he say about this?
Well, he might quip, that we're busy rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic while the hull is springing climate plugs.
Yeah.
He often talked about war and greed stemming from ignorance. And today, that ignorance might be wearing the suits of, oil lobbyists, politicians scrambling over fossil fuel geopolitics, seemingly blind to the bigger picture.
Which brings us to that troubling paradox. The institutions meant to stop this, the UN climate conferences, the ITCC scientists, they seem just as stuck.
Paralyzed almost.
Yeah, the Paris goals are crystal clear, right? Emissions have to peak before 2025 and then fall 43% by 2030.
It's a huge drop.
Massive. But what are we actually seeing? Emissions are kind of plateauing nervously, not plunging like they need to. It's like you've got Nobel laureates presenting undeniable science and leaders just shrugging, dismissing it.
It feels like that sometimes.
If we use that Gita analogy again for climate, you could picture Arjuna just despairing, that whole message of swadharma, of duty, forgotten.
Duty to life, to the planet.
Right. But instead, we're locked in this fight for short-term gain. Krishna might be saying, you have a right to action, not the fruits, but we're toiling for these carbon fruits that are literally dooming future generations. So what does this all mean for the future?
It means that even, the youth, the ones often dismissed, they're sensing the absurdity with real clarity.
Of protesters.
Yeah. Sources mention teenagers reading serious novelists and Gita quotes, chanting change the system as the temperatures soar. Some are even whispering, maybe Osho was right about consumerism.
So the time for vague promises is over.
Long past.
Yeah.
You could almost paint this bleakly satirical picture, right? World leaders at COP28, maybe in camo sandals, sipping iced lattes.
While a sign flashes, planet? 2.7 degrees C warning?
Exactly. It's not funny, obviously, for anyone actually living through this heat. But the disconnect, it's painfully obvious. The urgency is just, it's undeniable.
Okay, so the Earth is burning. And meanwhile, humans. Well, we haven't lost our appetite for setting each other ablaze either.
Tragically, no.
Two conflicts stand out right now, textbook examples almost.
Yeah.
Ukraine and the Middle East.
Indeed. The war in Ukraine started February 2022.
Right.
It's not just regional anymore. It's evolved. It feels like a global front now.
Oh, so?
By 2025, it's become this all-out artillery and missile war, tens of thousands of casualties, and civilian deaths are climbing sharply.
Really?
Yeah, UN monitors reported April 2025 saw 209 civilians killed, over 1,100 injured. That's an 84% jump over April 2024, the deadliest month for civilians since late 2022.
84% jump.
And cities along the front that look like Stalingrad or Grozny, but with no clear path to peace, just destruction.
And the nuclear tension, that's back too, right?
Yeah. Unequivocally back. Russia shifted its doctrine in 2024. After Ukraine hit Kursk, Moscow lowered its threshold for using nuclear weapons. Said it could respond to non-nuclear strikes with nukes.
That's chilling.
It is. NATO responded, obviously. Deeper radar, DEFCON alerts. Though U.S. intelligence still says full-scale nuclear war is unlikely.
Unlikely, but possible.
The saber rattling is constant. Kremlin missile test videos keep coming. They even staged a nuclear sub-drill near Alaska late 2024. Just reminding everyone.
And North Korea is involved now?
Directly. This is a really disturbing new chapter. Reports say Moscow recruited 11,000, maybe 12,000 North Korean soldiers for the Ukraine front.
Wow. So it's becoming internationalized?
It looks like it, like a Soviet-era proxy march, but with 21st century weapons. U.S. analysts are worried this could fracture global stability even more.
Meanwhile, Europe's juggling aid, dealing with restless citizens.
And facing this creeping realization that further escalation could redraw global lines. Seriously, redraw them.
It sounds like a fuse burning very slowly. Or maybe not so slowly. Could it really blow up into something bigger? What are the ripple effects?
It's a very real risk.
Right.
And we are seeing ripples. Sabotage blasts in Norway's gas pipeline linked to the conflict. Cyber attacks on U.S. infrastructure traced to Russian hackers. Big war games in the Baltics.
And Russia's hybrid attacks.
Yeah, American sources say Moscow's behind a campaign across Europe. Subversion, sabotage. It's like a wounded bear swiping at NATO. As one analyst put it dryly, the chance of escalation was never not there. We've been on this knife edge.
And then halfway across the world, the Middle East, still a crucible, Israel and Iran.
That tension hit boiling point late 2023, and it's still smoldering. Dangerously. What used to be proxy war, it's flipped. It's direct now.
Direct strikes.
Israeli strikes deep into Iran. Iranian drones and missiles fired directly at Israel. Remember June 7th, 2025? Israel hit military sites inside Iran, assassinated top IRGC and nuclear scientists.
I remember reading about that.
Tehran responded. Missiles, drones at Israel. Some got through, some didn't. But that direct exchange, that's new and perilous. Before, it was fought through Syria, Yemen, Hezbollah.
Speaking of Hezbollah, how are they involved now?
Well, they watched this escalation with deep concern. In autumn 2024, Israel launched this massive bombardment on southern Lebanon, tied to Beirut suburbs, trying to cripple Hezbollah.
Casualties.
UN sources estimate around 4,000 people killed, fighters and civilians. Hezbollah's leadership was hit hard. Nasrallah himself, commanders targeted, losing relatives.
So are they joining the direct fight now?
Interestingly, as of summer 2025, no. They've held back rockets, even though Iran was apparently pleading with them. Analysis suggests Hezbollah is depleted, unwilling to risk even worse retaliation from Israel.
But the situation is still unstable.
Deeply unstable. Every artillery exchange, every drone could draw others in. Both sides warn of full-scale war if they feel cornered.
And the civilians?
Caught in the middle. People in Lebanon sleeping in shelters, packing bags nightly. In Iran, state media reported children killed when Israel hit a sacred site. Israelis hiding in safe rooms. The human cost is immense.
And all this is happening on top of the Gaza war.
Exactly. Started October 2023. Over 45,000 Palestinians dead, over 1,000 Israelis, 90% of Gaza displaced, staggering numbers.
Met with vetoes at the UN Security Council.
Which just fuels cynicism about global governance. We'll get to that. But the impact is global. When headlines scream attack on Iran or Israel will disappear, people everywhere feel it. Farmers watching news in terror, kids asking why everyone's afraid.
So the global stage is just littered with belligerents.
Pretty much. You've got the big armies, Russia, U.S., China, India, then countless militias, proxies, Hezbollah, Myanmar's junta, ISIS cells, Ukrainian partisans.
And what do they all have in common?
They're all buying new guns,
Yeah.
rockets, cyber weapons. While ignoring pleas to invest in, say, solar panels, it's the worst kind of arms race. It makes climate change look as an optional side quest.
It's terrifying, isn't it? That even with all this conventional violence, we've still got our finger hovering over the truly catastrophic buttons. Nuclear. Biological.
It's an alarming aspect, absolutely. The scale of the nuclear stockpile alone, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
And it's growing again.
Growing. I thought we were reducing them.
There were slow cuts after the Cold War, but the trend has reversed.
Yeah.
As of January 2024, roughly 12,121 nuclear warheads worldwide.
12,000.
About 9,585 in active military stockpiles, and nearly 4,000 deployed on missiles or bombers, ready to go.
How ready?
Around 2,100 are on high alert, launch within minutes. And it used to be just Russia and the U.S. with missiles fully alert.
Yeah.
But that's the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute.
Yeah, I know them.
They suggest China, for the first time, is keeping some missiles on routine readiness, too.
So China's joining that club.
Looks like it. Their arsenal's estimated at 500 warheads in 2024, up from maybe 4 in 10 the year before, and rising.
But Russia and the U.S. still have most.
About 90%, yeah. But others are building fast. India, Pakistan modernizing, developing multiple warhead missiles, North Korea testing. The bottom line, A new arms race is undeniably underway. Soprano notes both Russia and the USA actually deployed more warheads in 2023.
So we're digging graves, but with shiny new tools, as Osho might say.
Something like that. It's the classic security paradox. More bombs don't necessarily mean more safety.
And nukes aren't the only nightmare fuel, right? Biological weapons.
Equally troubling. The Biological Weapons Convention, the BWC, signed by most nations, sure. But enforcement, nearly impossible.
Why?
No real verification. Countries can just say no to inspections. And intelligence reports consistently warn about covert programs, Russia and North Korea. The U.S. has ongoing significant concerns about their offensive bioarsenals.
What about China and Iran?
Their biotech research hints at latent capability. A U.S. report said Iran has not abandoned work on biological toxins. Think smallpox, anthrax, engineered viruses, intentionally released, killing thousands without a single bomb.
So, nukes, bioweapons, new tech. It's the classic security dilemma on steroids.
Absolutely. One state's missile defense is another's launch code trigger. Everyone races to get the next weapon because they fear the other side will get it first.
And leaders say never again at memorials, but then they're running secret drills to prove they can do it again.
The irony is profound. Seabri's yearbook says powers are deepening their reliance on nuclear deterrence. Peace bought with readiness for war.
And the money wasted. It's staggering.
It is. Seabri found the top 100 arms companies pulled in $632 billion in revenue in 2023 from weapons sales, a 6% jump.
$632 billion. What could that buy?
Our sources note, enough to vaccinate the entire planet for life with COVID boosters.
Instead, more missile launchers.
Yeah. You can always hear Krishnamurti saying, you enslave yourselves accumulating security and bombs, but it's your inner fear that arms itself.
And now cyber weapons. Drones.
Adding to the mayhem, hacking cells, knocking out power grids, misinformation campaigns, swarms of cheap AI drones flooding battlefields like locusts.
So a teenager could freeze a city with code. A pilot in pajamas could launch a drone swarm.
It multiplies the strangeness, doesn't it? And laws, morals, they can't keep pace. These invisible arsenals, no global treaties, virtually no enforcement, almost undetectable until impact.
So proliferation races ahead, institutions lag behind, bombs, germs, robots leaping ahead of diplomacy.
Exactly. That Gita teaching. Integrity of action matters, not destruction, seems ignored. Politicians rush to sign arms contracts, not climate accords.
Which points to something deeper, doesn't it? The human mind, leadership, ideology. That's the real driver here.
It really is. Ramana Maharshi taught the external world reflects our inner state. And right now, our nations often behave like, well, kids who never grew up, squabbling, shouting, me first.
While philosophers talk about self-awareness, leaders stoke tribal myths.
That's a big part of it. Across continents, nationalist, populist, autocratic narratives are gaining traction. Regimes in Beijing, Moscow, they're working hard to normalize authoritarianism. Spinning us versus them stories. External enemies lurking everywhere. Warmongering gets cloaked as patriotism, counterterrorism. History gets rewritten. Patriotic education pushes kids towards the military.
And it's not just authoritarian states. Even democracies are in trouble.
Significant trouble. Freedom House reported 52 countries saw declines in political rights or civil liberties last year. Only 21 improved.
Why the decline?
Governments cite rising threats as an excuse. Crackdowns, mass surveillance, internet censorship, punishing dissenters. All under the guise of security.
So an official might say, protecting our values, while cutting environmental funds for tanks.
Exactly. Krishnamurti pointed out that paradox. We lose inner freedom clinging to narrow identity. Inner conflict becomes outer conflict.
What about the psychology of the leaders themselves?
Some seem driven by deep insecurity. Speeches full of paranoia, foreign conspiracies, aggression, the next enemy. It's not fiction. It's what they're saying.
Treating the world like a war game.
It feels like that. Remember Hitler believing he was destined to expand the Reich? Some modern leaders have similar apocalyptic visions, but now with tech and troll farms.
Collective neurosis.
You could call it that. Studies show narcissistic or paranoid leadership styles make war more likely. Look at Russian propaganda making citizens believe NATO wants to destroy them, so we must strike first.
Or Western populists blaming immigration for everything.
Right. Scapegoating instead of addressing real complex domestic issues inflame an enemy of the weak. It's a pattern.
And this creeps into the culture too. Militaristic ideas becoming mainstream.
Definitely. School books, glorifying ancient wars, soldier-themed video games, shoot-'em-up movies, it shapes minds.
Social media.
Buzzing with conspiracies. People retweeting our blood and soil or death to terrorists without thinking. Fake news used to discredit inconvenient facts like climate data or war crimes evidence.
A self-reinforcing cycle. Propaganda, mistrust, more propaganda.
Exactly. While the real problems, climate, pandemics, economy, get ignored or retweeted much later, if at all.
Krishnamurti asked, is there a way out of this chaos?
He saw war as ignorance writ large, fear of the unknown creating external enemies. Osho said seeking security only externally flags, ideologies inevitably sparks conflict.
Yet today, rigid identity is praised as strength. Questioning authority is weakness.
That's often the narrative. Ironically, militants sometimes cite Gandhi or Buddha to support their cause, an absurdity Osho or Krishnamurti would have found darkly comical.
And democratic norms are eroding.
Clearly. Legislatures rubber-stamping more budgets, international courts brushed off, journalists, academics attacked for questioning the narrative. The whole liberal democratic order is struggling.
So it's not just autocracy versus democracy failing. Both are.
Seems like it. One by oppression, the other by indecision and greed. If Ramana Maharshi were advising, he might just say, go within, your onboard engine is broke. But instead, we rev up the tanks.
Okay, so if ideology is the script, then the international institutions, they're the stage. And that stage is creaking. Badly.
Ominously, yeah. Let's look at the UN. Conceived to prevent global war. Now, it often looks like an ineffective charity bazaar.
The Security Council especially.
The P5, meant to be the guardian of peace, often just a mouthpiece for national self-interest. Here's a stat. Past decade, 30 vetoes on major conflicts. 27 were by Russia, China, or the U.S.
27 out of 30.
And 27 were on Syria, Ukraine, or Israel-Palestine. Basically, vetoing anything restraining their own interests. The P5 use it like a private toolbox.
Like with Gaza. General Assembly wants a ceasefire. U.S. vetoes in the Security Council.
Repeatedly. In favor of Israel. The result, humanitarian catastrophe worsens. Over 230 million people globally in urgent need from conflicts that could have been mitigated.
So critics say it's paralyzed by rivalry.
Exactly. An Arab news scholar called it paralyzed by geopolitical rivalries. Oxfam says the P5 act is judge and jury of their own military alliances.
So a massive credibility crisis.
Huge. It's legally the guardian of collective security, but can't keep peace if a P5 member disagrees. Look at the Arab Spring. Or the climate cops' grand announcements. Emissions still climb.
Global goals ending poverty by 2030. Just glossy backdrops.
Feels that way. Other bodies struggle too. WHO, no enforcement power. WTO gridlocked. IMF, World Bank floundering with debt crises.
The irony is painful. The UN Charter has these lofty ideals.
Peace, human rights, but the top body stalls and people die. Remember Krishnamurti's warning. It is no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
The UN's well-adjusted veto culture, a very sick outcome.
By that measure, yes. And the world just watches.
And it's not just the UN. Specific treaties like the Biological Weapons Convention, the Chemical Weapons Convention.
Similar weaknesses. The BWC, as we said, no verification mechanism, can't put compelled inspections. The CWC, Russia declared non-compliant recently. Iran accused of incomplete disclosure. It's like a fire department with no ladders.
Even universities, research bodies caught in the storm.
Climate scientists shouting to be heard over skeptics. Journalists censored. Social media struggling with hate speech. Disturbingly, some in the West are nostalgic for Cold War Stasi-style surveillance, fearing fellow citizens.
And the broader political dynamic, a great power free-for-all.
The peace dividend is long gone. The big three, U.S., China, Russia, are in a new confrontation.
America's pivot to Asia, China's assertiveness, Russia's aggression.
All fueling a new arms race. Non-Western powers aligning, forming blocs. India buying both U.S. and Russian arms. Mutually assured stability might have replaced Mad but it feels very tenuous. No easy escapes in a globalized world.
Yet, despite all this, hope flickers in strange places.
It does. Youth climate strikes millions uniting over science. Small nations like Bhutan, Costa Rica leading on renewables. Tech innovators quietly building carbon capture labs, peace tech apps.
War-weary generals yearning for calm.
You can imagine it. And the Gita teaches we change the world by changing ourselves. If ever an age needed that wisdom, it's now.
Okay, this seems like a good point to really turn to those voices of spiritual insight, reinterpreting them for today.
Right. These are paraphrased echoes, remember. Not direct quotes necessarily, but their core messages hold up a mirror to our absurdity, our predicament. It's another way to analyze what's going on.
Let's start with Osho, the Mahabharata.
He often saw it as an allegory for the inner war. Pandavas versus Kauravas, as truth versus falsehood inside us, global militaries, just collective ego wars writ large.
He'd joke about warlords swapping uniforms for robes if they meditated.
Probably. And he'd note the irony of armies using sacred symbols on insignia while driving people apart. His advice: be like a tree, rooted in awareness. Maybe plant literal trees over minds.
And Krishna in the Gita, the parallel seems so direct. Arjuna frozen on the battlefield.
Exactly. Krishna teaches dharma, duty, nishkama, karma, detached action, the illusory self. Fast forward to today, leaders declare it's our dharma for wars or trade disputes.
But do they meditate on what duty truly means?
Few seem to. Krishnamurti called education focused only on nationalism poison. Our schools teaching the Gita's wisdom. We seem to be ignoring Krishna, living out Osho's warning, acting without consciousness.
Krishnamurti was blunt about war starting with me, inner conflict rippling out.
Very blunt. Peace is impossible until individuals are free from fear and greed. He'd likely look at today's world and say, psychologically, the whole world has gone mad.
A phrase that fits some news debates pretty well.
Doesn't it? He'd satirize powers building missiles while preaching peace, profound hypocrisy. He observed most people live in constant anxiety, arguing about border fences, forgetting we're all just frightened minds behind flags.
And Ramana Maharshi, his who am I inquiry.
Go deep, he said, and the inside-outside division dissolves. Questioning the I that claims land or ideology isn't just spiritual, it's geopolitically necessary. If nations are characters shouting in his cinema.
Behind them is only silence and peace.
That was his view. He'd chuckle at intelligent weapons, suggest intelligent silence. The real war is in the mind, clinging to illusory identities that fuel conflict.
So if these sages commented on today's news, what would they say?
Maybe something like, you created a spectacularly contradictory drama, flying to Mars but stranded in your minds.
Building hospitals, then blowing them up.
Tweeting love for children, then launching missiles at them. You call it duty security. Isn't it just the violence of unexamined fear?
And Osho's circus analogy.
This whole civilization, an enormous humorless circus. Clowns in uniforms dance to the tune of guns. Everyone watches with popcorn, not realizing the tent's on fire. Comedic, but tragically true.
Even humor itself feels darker now. Satire of leaders, memes.
But there's cynicism behind the laughs. A sense that maybe the game's almost over. Krishnamurti would warn against laughter as pure escapism, denial. True laughter comes from seeing and transcending the errors.
People say, this is Kurukshetra all over again, the Mahabharata battlefield.
They do. But the difference is crucial. The epic had clear heroes, clear villains. Today, every side claims righteousness. Every conqueror invokes dharma. Every victim claims innocence. Reality outdoes fiction.
Like we're all writing conflicting chapters of the same epic.
Exactly. No wonder Osho saw Gandhi's nonviolence, ahimsa, as so revolutionary against the Mahabharata's bloodshed. That idea is still an underdog flag today.
It's tempting to just joke to bear the weight, isn't it? But satire does hold wisdom. It highlights contradictions.
Precisely. Look at the farcical irony. Leaders bemoaning climate change while approving new oil pipelines. Osho might say, spiritual men sow peace, politicians sow pipelines, and the world on fire wonders who the arsonist is.
We're spending fortunes on missile defense while cutting schools and healthcare.
Bizarre, right? $73 billion a year just in the U.S. on missile defense. Krishnamurti might say, we invest in killing machines like cameras, capturing an enemy, while failing to develop cameras for truth.
And the UN absurdity, advising on malaria while paralyzed on war.
Osho might say, fight disease with one hand and war with the other, and you'll end up dying twice over. The ironies are everywhere. Waging war to defend against war. Using information to drown truth. Claiming stability while burning trust. If it's a cosmic joke, the punchline is long and awkward.
Yet, Ramana Maharshi would say, none of this touches the silent core of being.
Right. No missile hits the self. No heat wave withers the witness. His question, who am I, becomes the ultimate satire. We have so many identities, national, ethnic, partisan, we forget the simplest one.
The real revolution is uncovering that identity of pure awareness before it all collapses.
Perhaps. So who among our leaders is asking who they truly are? Who in the electorate asks if this bloodshed aligns with their highest self? Those are the ironic questions you won't hear on cable news.
Which leads us to the really grim possibility, a catastrophic reset. It feels less philosophical now, more like a logical outcome.
It does. Scientists at copies, IPCC. They're saying we're dangerously late on climate. Nuclear strategists admit a limited exchange could trigger nuclear winter, and India-Pakistan war could collapse global agriculture.
Biodefense experts warn of engineered pandemics worse than COVID.
Yes, Put it all together, and reset isn't just speculative. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists' doomsday clock, 90 seconds to midnight in late 2024. Closest ever, factoring in nuclear, climate, bio threats.
90 seconds.
It's a stark symbol. Young people are asking, are we heading toward a reset? Do they mean collapse and rebuild? Or can we still course correct?
What would the Gita say? Cyclical destruction and recreation, kalpas. But the soul, Atman, is untouched.
That's one interpretation, solace maybe. But in human terms, a reset means unimaginable suffering. Krishna might say actions seed future fruits. So war and pollution reap disaster.
Osho might call it cosmic justice, the result of denial. When a man does not honor consciousness, he meets with consequences.
Krishnamurti, though, he'd say waiting for a reset or a savior is foolish. The only revolution is now in awareness. Die to the past, he said. Free ourselves from history's destructive patterns.
He'd satirize the idea of rebooting the world. The real button is in your mind.
Probably. Let go of history. Ramana might frame it as a koan. Is it the end of the world or the beginning of thought? Do we let external forces flip the switch, or do we flip the inner switch to peace?
Change the channel from the horror flick playing in our minds.
Through meditation, compassion, letting go. That was his teaching.
And the UN, diplomacy. Osho's take on empty formalities.
Sending ambassadors to Paris for climate talks while putting bombs in the air, like building a dam and drilling a hole at the same time. Our current governance can't avert the worst without a revolutionary shift in collective will.
Like the young activists calling for system change, not climate change.
Could be Osho's punchline. It boils down to intentionality, doesn't it? If nations prioritize life, the future, over immediate power, the whole scoreboard would flip.
Real change would look utopian. Pundits replaced by thinkers quoting Ramana, parliaments prioritizing meditation, generals retiring in yoga robes.
It sounds utopian, maybe comedic. But maybe that's the point. We need some utopian dreaming. Otherwise, the crash is terrifyingly logical.
Countries have plans for nuclear winter. Mobilize seeds, move south, pray.
They do. But none of those plans address why we got here.
So the existential crux is, are we evolving consciousness faster than our lethal capacities? Or do we have to crash first?
That's the question. Spiritual teachers hope for evolution, that spark of awareness ending the cycle. Ramana said, even if the world burns, the self remains.
Solace or a challenge. Why burn the world if it's all still you?
Exactly. Krishnamurti said, truth is a pathless land. No treaty solves it if people don't walk away from old paths. Osho quipped about an hour of meditation ending wars. Naive, maybe. But more hopeful than arms races.
So the choice is what we do with our moment. Add to the noise or seek inner peace.
Climb with wisdom or stumble with ego. From a higher view, it's almost poetic absurdity. Humanity as playwright and actor, directing the final scene. Will it be collapse or elimination?
Osho. Better to end laughing than wailing. Krishnamurti. The end is the beginning of wisdom.
This raises an important question.
So, dear listener, as you lean in and hear these truths, maybe unsettling truths, ask yourself, where do I stand in all this? Are you the soldier fueling the machine? The policymaker tinkering, or maybe the conscious witness who can dare to step off the merry-go-round?
It's a personal reflection, isn't it?
It is. We owe it to future generations, surely, not to just stand by, not apathy, not cynicism. Remember the Mahabharata? Choice, duty, awareness determine the outcome.
We need both the facts and the deeper reflection.
Absolutely. If we're to survive, or just keep our dignity, we need to weave the sobering facts with these deeper thoughts. Learn to laugh at the absurdities without losing resolve. Meditate on what matters without turning a blind eye to the facts.
Will it be reset or rebirth? Only time and maybe collective consciousness will tell.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. Truly. Until next time, stay curious, stay reflective, and keep seeking that deeper understanding.